Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder 2 Duck Talks number 72 on the 24th of December 2019. So, Merry Christmas to all of you. Some of you will celebrate this a day later or a few hours later as the point of release of this video, and a few of you have already celebrated it, and some are right in the festive hours, and so I hope you have a great time. If you don't celebrate Christmas because you're not Christian or you just don't like to celebrate whatever, I hope that you have a good time anyway. It's just a time to remember what has happened the last year, and so I want to reflect just a little bit, and I also want to talk about some actual topics right now. So Merry Christmas to all of you, and for the rest of you that are not celebrating it, I still hope that you have an awesome time. The next thing is I want to talk a little bit about the replay decision from last patch. Then I want to talk about the Britain and Germany get some mobile tanks thing, and then the current status of naval forces. Then also how the Operation Frost is currently going on and why I think that it is a good event, but still pretty grindy, but rightfully so, and it's doable for good people, for people that have already invested kind of a little bit of time in War Thunder, and it's still a little bit rough for extremely new players. On the other hand, then at the very end of the video I tried to answer the questions from the last Duck Talks. So let's get right into it. So, at the last Duck Talks, I announced that I will turn a little bit my back on naval forces since, you know, the views collapsed, nobody showed really interest, the gameplay was dull and stupid, and on this behalf nothing has changed, thanks to Gaijin's development process, which is bad. And so I announced that I will once in a while feature some replays, and I asked you guys if you were okay with this. The overwhelming majority said yes, I think that this is a good chance, and a few more have asked where they can send me those replays. I then have added this into the video description, so there you can find the introduction to how you do this, and where you can, or what my email address is. And I want you to add the replay file, of course, then some screenshots of the post-battle result screens, and also, if possible, a screenshot of your current upgrade status of the said vehicle. If it is a premium, then it doesn't really matter. And also I want an in-depth description. What was your thinking process, and which kind of decision did you make at which point, which was the key to your success or the outcome of the battle in general. This helps me a lot, because if you do an action and it looks stupid from the first view of it, maybe you had another kind of information available that is not visible in the replay, and I only can know so much how you play your tanks or your planes or your ships, whatever. It doesn't really matter. So if you let me know what you did and why you did it, at which point, that helps me so much in making a video out of it. Very often I just get sent emails, "Here Napalm, I had a great battle, please feature it." Okay, what game mode was it? When was it played? What was your plan? Did you have a lineup? What was your options, right? So there is very often nothing added except for the replay file, and "Here Napalm had a great battle, please feature it." That's not helping me much, and I only can ignore those replays. And sometimes there are also replays where somebody just farmed, where somebody just spawn camped, where somebody used an overpowered vehicle in my opinion, and had the luck and the fortune of a complete down tier and just seal clubbed the hell out of the enemy. I'm not quite sure if this is so nice to feature, right? And then suddenly 17 kills are nothing special, right? So I hope that you guys keep this in mind. Again, send me not just the replay file, but also the screenshots from your post-battle results, and also the upgrade status of your said vehicle, and also an in-depth description. What was your decision making, what was your planning, and did every little point work, or did you try to work around a whoopsie-daisy scenario? So that is very important. Then Britain and Germany got some mobile tanks added over the past couple of patches, the last 2 patches to be a bit more precise. So for Germany, it was the very welcome addition of the Leichter Kampfpanzer M41. I actually have already made a review of this tank, and I'll release it probably tomorrow, as you will see this. So on the 25th of December. It's already uploaded, it's already there. I absolutely love this tank. Then also the SPZ BMP-1 was added, also a very welcome addition. Germany now actually has to get some more light tanks between 6.3 and 3.0. As I said in the past, I hoped that the Sonderkraftfahrzeug 234-4, aka the Pack Puma or Packwagen, is actually something in the actual tech tree at battle rating 5.0. As Gaijin has decided, it's a 3.0 rather rare event vehicle which gets sold on the marketplace for horrendous prices, which I absolutely hate. Then for Britain, a similar story, and yeah, the addition of the Vickers Mark 7 was nice for top tier. At slightly lower battle rating 8.3, the Roykart Mark 1D is a tank also worth talking about. I made a video about this tank, absolutely love it. For Britain, they now need something below the Warrior from 7.7 down to yeah, as low as 2.7. They really lack mobile light tanks, in my opinion. And, you know, with all the toolboxes, as I mentioned so often, the artillery strike, the scouting mechanic, which is very powerful, the ability to help allies repairing faster, the repositioning, winning the flanking battles. Light tanks are extremely powerful and a very useful tool for especially experienced players that just don't rush down the middle of the map. And so I think that this has to be mentioned here. Now, one thing that I really need to stress out here is, whenever I say that a certain nation has a lack of mobility, I'm not talking about the entire tech tree. I'm talking about certain specific battle ratings. Usually I forgot to mention this, and then the confusion and the rage in the comment section, how I dare to say this about this nation because this and that is there, and just quite prominently so. For example, with Germany. They have just simply a lack of mobility, and I don't count the RE251 because it's a premium. The Panther 2 got removed from research and is still only there for those that already have you know, researched it. Then the backup is not really available. The Jagdpanzer für 5 is a casemate tank destroyer. While it is really quickly, it just lacks also the light tank toolbox, if you will. And yeah, is not really that useful in my opinion. It's a good tank in the right hands. Certain people really specialize it, but at the end of the day, what mobility really brings for Germany, for Germany, begins with the VT-12. Again, a rather rare event vehicle at 8.3. Yes, tanks like the Leopard 2A5, 2A4, the 2K, and the Leopard A1A1, as well as the Kapit Z70, they are really fast tanks, such as also the Raketenjagdpanzers. But they are all at higher battle ratings, you know, from 7.7 onwards. That doesn't really help the previously slowest lineup at 6.7 with such tanks as the Jagdtiger and, you know, the Tiger 2 series of tanks. So this has now changed for the better. Please keep this in mind, that I'm always talking about the respective battle rating bracket, okay? And Britain also had the advantage to get indirectly supported by the US players in their vast array of light tanks, beginning with the Walker Bulldog, M56, T92, the M50 Ontos, and also the premium variants, the T114, with their insane firepower, the Super Hellcat, the Hellcat in general, you know, beginning with battle rating 5.3, and then at lower battle ratings we have still the M24, and, you know, some troll tanks like the M5A1. So I think not every nation is perfectly suited in every single aspect at every single battle ratings, but certain gaps were certainly there. And it kind of frustrated me, but also amused me how certain people reacted to those comments. I guess the majority of people that watched my videos agreed, and you know, the like to dislike ratio were always above 90%, but there were always certain people that deliberately or just by default misunderstood me or didn't really let me finish the sentence in the video, right? And then just made those comments and then forgot to deal with the comments. But all things aside, I think that this is a good change that Britain and Germany got more mobility in their tech tree. It's not finished, the task is not done yet at the hands of Galchen, and if Galchen can add some quick copy-paste vehicles, I think that's a quick-term solution, but in the long run, really more indigenous vehicles have to be added. And that brings us to the next topic, and a rather ranty one. Naval Forces in patch 1.59. Oh boy, where should I begin? So I think that, yeah, for all of you that watched my naval videos, you are fully aware what's going on. But for the few of you that just listen to what I have to say about Naval Forces when I make my Duck Talks, let me summarize it. The compression was made even worse despite my most furious warnings directly to Galchen, and I just warned them so much about the wrongdoings they did. They did not address the problems at all. In fact, they made it worse. Germany is now the most played nation, I guess, with the strongest 5.7 battle rating lineup. At lower battle ratings, it varies a little bit, there is more diversity, but the sheer imbalance and overpoweredness of the German 5.7 lineup, including the best Alpha Strike monster with the Admiral Graf Spee, the best premium cruiser, the Prinz Eugen, and also two very powerful tech tree rank 4 ships like the Nürnberg and the Admiral Hipper, both at 5.7. In fact, we have 4 capable 5.7 ships. They just ruin the rest of the party for the Americans, for the Soviets, for the British, and for the Japanese naval forces. Period. And then there is the horrendous map design. Then there are the stupid game modes, spawning in a circle in the open ocean, and sometimes on certain maps less than 8 kilometers from each other. It's such a horrendous joke to let the HMS Hawkins, the D-86, a World War I cruiser design with not even 8-inch guns and only 6 of them per broadside, fight something like an Admiral Hipper, Admiral Graf Spee, a Prinz Eugen. That's just so bad. I know that it is technically still in closed beta, but it's just such a bad joke. It's so bad. Who can take this serious? And then balance is shifting from one nation to the other. When the first cruisers came out, it was obviously the Emden. Then it switched sometimes for certain players to the Krasny Kafkas, which was also pretty powerful. But the Americans had then the drawback of the USS Trenton. Then the USS Raleigh, for some reason, is 5.3, which makes no sense whatsoever. It's effectively the same ship, just a little bit spiced up anti-aircraft firepower. And then in the next patch, the USS Brooklyn ruined then the rest when it ruined the fun for the rest of all the other ships when it was introduced, because it just spammed powerful 6-inch shells all over the place every 6 seconds from 15 turrets with the best armor, and then this was the flavor of the month, right? Then in other patches, the Kirov and the Chapayev was added, which ruined then the rest for them, and the Japanese cruisers, as powerful guns as they have, they just couldn't compete with the lack of armor, the lack of DPM, and also the Alpha Strike was not the best. They just got spammed into the ground. And then when Germany now got the Admiral Hipper, then it was all over. And then with the next patch, this patch, adding the Prinz Eugen and the Admiral Graf Spee is just another nail into the coffin of Naval Forces success. And I have warned Gaijin about so many things, and they have not addressed any of this. In fact, they have made it worse. And this is the current status of Naval Forces. It's the worst game design I have ever seen, period. And Gaijin just hiding behind the fact they can't add this and that and can't change it. They just say they can't, and then the next patch they just change it anyway, because then the dev team just tried, you know. And what will we see in the upcoming patches? Well, I gave the warning about the two premium cruisers, the USS Helena and the British HMS Belfast, already, that they were just relevant for 1.93. And now this has come true, because they are completely made irrelevant. They share the same battle rating as the HMS Hawkins, as I said, but at the same time, Admiral Graf Spee, Nürnberg, Admiral Hipper and Prinz Eugen are just the best 5.7 lineup that there is. You can buy yourself directly into being the top battle rating ship. And the Prinz Eugen is a good ship, don't get me wrong. Powerful guns, nice armor, and increased anti-aircraft firepower is the flavor of a premium. And it's a really good cruiser. But then there is this RNG that still 6-inch high explosive shell can detonate your ammo rack because, I don't know, and for 60 euros you only get the ship in a bundle. 60 euros for a dead game mode, effectively. And what will come next patch? Will the Americans and the British or the Japanese get some battle cruisers with what? 12-inch, 13.5-inch guns? Oof. And then what do you think happens to the Prinz Eugen? What do you think happens to the USS Helena and the HMS Belfast as premium ships? They're made completely worthless, like some of the premium destroyers are now already worthless for one reason or the other. The compression is insane, the imbalance is insane. In fact, it is all so bad that Gaijin has created a white paper, because they can just take it together and just throw it into the garbage and create from new. On the other hand, well, every other ship has been made irrelevant from 5.7 upwards, because that kills all the rarity that there is ever in War Thunder Naval Forces. This is all that we have to say over the past couple of years, and still nothing has changed. Now, I don't expect Gaijin to listen to me and change then everything that they have planned. But I have warned them continuously over the past couple of years about their wrongdoings in naval forces. Objectively speaking, not just some random feelings, I think this is overpowered. Actual numbers. I have warned them about ships being overperforming on the dev server or on the live server, or underperforming, and lack of competition, etc., etc. And yet they don't care. And it's actually they are shooting themselves in the foot, because they earn less money. They still have the expenses in terms of the devs need to develop this game mode one way or the other. And this is before we come even to the enduring confrontation that I played over the weekend. Only one battle. And I tried my hardest to go forward in a destroyer and just to kill, you know, something. To just kill something, to kill enough to get 600 spawn points. And then, whoopsie daisy, I was the first in a heavy cruiser. Guess what? I was there with the Admiral Graf Spee shooting 11-inch high explosive shells across the entire fucking map on destroyers, and killed them without them having any sort of chance of, you know, going away or hiding or any sort of countermeasures. Dodging versus 11-inch shells, yeah, that's as much of a bad joke as it is in World of Warships with just dodge the aircraft carrier. So, really, really bad. So, the combat distances are trash, the map design are trash, the game modes are trash, variety is killed off by just the flavor of the month being overspiced. Oof. Now, there is one positive aspect, and this is Operation Frost. See, the good thing about the Operation Frost is that it is the winter marathon, and you have 2 days time for fulfilling 3 out of 5 tasks to earn a star. And it is down to you which kind of battle rating you play, which tier you play, except it must be at least tier 3, so that prevents actually seal clubbing, which is a good thing. And you can play it in arcade, you can play it in simulator, you can play it in realistic, and you can switch between the modes as you like. And you can only focus on one vehicle if you like. And you also don't have to fulfill all the stars. I think there are 11 or 12 stars that you can earn, but you need only 10. So there are so many good things, and as much as I rant about Gaijin's wrongdoings, you have to give them credit. So they give you 6 rewards: plane, ship, and tanks, and 5 of them are premium. It's just that the Merkava Mark II, I think, is not a premium, so be warned about this one, but it will be the most desirable one. So Operation Frost, I think, is the good thing, and if you miss out on one thing and it's just missing you 1 or 2 stars, then you can buy them for a more or less reasonable price. Obviously, this is all down to your own, what do you think about the value of a ship, tank, or a plane, but at least it is doable, and I quite like this. So that's point number 1. And it's a good old grind event. Yes, it costs you time, but there is so much synergy between the tasks. There is just so much, while you can do it in a normal, random battle. You don't have to play an exclusive event or something. So I think you have to highlight this, and we have definitely seen worse in the past. And again, if you look at World of Warships with the Puerto Rico fiasco, oof, let's just hope that Gaijin has not seen this disaster and thinks, good idea. Because, at the end of the day, it's Gaijin, and whenever they make one step in the right direction, very often they make 2 steps in the wrong direction. And again, this game is just like a big wedding cake. It's beautiful, it's huge, there is so much diversity and variety in the art, when you look at this. But it's just the one thing that I hate about this wedding cake: the little piece of brown dripping shit piled on top of it, where the devs just insist on this, or are not aware that there is shit, and they wonder why nobody likes the wedding cake, because there is just a little bit of shit ruining the rest of the cake. This is developing a game is difficult, especially such a huge project as War Thunder. We have 1,500 plus vehicles in that game: planes, tanks, helicopters, and ships, and we have, 3 different game modes, even more if you count the events in. There is quite a bit of variety. The problem is that Gaijin has managed to kill off most of the variety in favor of the flavor of the month, which is mostly a premium, and too much decompression. So the major problems have not been addressed, and this is ruining the almost near perfect rest of the game. And with having said this, I think this is now the time where we come to answering the questions. So it's not such a long video this time, and let's go right into them. So there are actually not that many questions this time, but just Ivan asked, #question, how do you have patience for Gaijin's bullshit? More you grind, less fun you have. Well, I guess I have invested already so much money, time, and effort, not just only in War Thunder, but also my YouTube channel, and I think that there are really great parts about War Thunder, and I stand by them. And yeah, there is a lot of stuff that I can rant, but there's also good stuff, and whenever there is good stuff, I praise it. Whenever there is bad stuff, then I criticize it. And so I think it's always down to you. If you think that you don't like the higher battle ratings, you always can go back. But for me as a content creator, you need your channel to grow. You need to keep interesting stuff appearing on your channel. And most of the time, it's just the people voting with their clicks. I see the like to dislike ratio. I see the amount of comments. I see the amount of views and how they rise, etc. I also see how in response of a video my subscriber numbers behave. Sometimes I lose subscribers, most of the time I gain subscribers, and especially with the most modern stuff, a lot of people seem to be interested in, and nobody seems to care about World War II stuff. But if you, for example, like really World War II stuff, then just play World War II stuff. In fact, one thing that I have to highlight, there is a breed of people out there that just like to play a certain specific tank or aircraft, and they really specialize it, and they just fly it out in a squad, and they only play it when they feel like it. They have reached that one vehicle that they care about, and I think that this is admirable, because they do not deal with all the bullshit that they hate on, right? And so I hope that you find your sweet spot in the game as well, because it is certainly there. Creator Chris asks, yes, I always wanted to send you some replays, but I never thought you care or anything. Where can I send you some? Again, look into the video description down below, and I also explained it at the beginning of the video. Then, Comrade Babuti, I hope I pronounced that right, hashtag question. Do you think we need a new engine update? In RRB or Sim, it feels unnatural to be only able to see dots, planes like only 10 kilometers away, and the terrain vanishing at about 20 kilometers. Oof. I think that War Thunder's maps are huge, and to render at distance every single detail costs a lot of processing power and a lot of graphic card powers. While I think that a lot of PCs are at certain settings able to handle this, I think that it never gets away, and when the render distance changes from 20 to 30 kilometers, people still will play it. I agree absolutely about the spot the dot minigame being a problem. It takes so much skill out of there. It has been a problem for years. Then it disappeared and it reappeared. It's an absolute mess. So while I do not really see the problem with terrain vanishing at about 20 kilometers, I mean, yeah, it's not so cinematic, I agree, but in terms of gameplay, it's not the greatest problem that we have in War Thunder. About Spot the Dot, in RRB in particular, I also know how to use it for my advantage in both killing and disappearing from the enemy. Then Jay Wilt asks a very long question, and I think I'll read it out in total for you. Hashtag question. Would you like to see the endgame tiers of the game decompressed into isolated BR islands, exactly 1.3 BR apart from each other, so neither up tiers nor down tiers are possible? I just see that neither up tiers nor down tiers work anymore in high tier tanks, and the same is frankly true for jets and ships too. What I mean by this is, the first endgame would be the old armor meta, things like the super heavies and super heavy tank destroyers with a light seasoning of post-war paper, armor, heat FS, hash, APDS dispersers to not let things be a total armor climbing free for all. The second would be early post-war era stuff and what I term post-war capable stuff built during World War II that was simply too good for World War II opponents, T-29, 34, 32, 32E1 with properly modeled ammo. The King Tiger 105 and Panther 2 would belong there, as would other early main battle tanks like the T-44-100, stabilized 20-pounders and M46, 47, 48A1. The third layer would be mostly non-stabilized L7 territory outside the British and M60A1 AOS. L7 Heat FS would be a meta shell here, and the handful of non-stabilized APFSTS dispersers would be there. M48A2 GA2, MX30P2, Brenners, Object 120, etc. The Conqueror, Centurion Mark 10, Victor's MBT, and Chieftains would sit there with properly modeled ammo. Conqueror should have 477mm pen. M103 and French 8.0 heavies Foch would sit here. All dedicated missile launchers tanks would sit here as well. Fourth layer would be the stabilized L7 type APFSTS, Chieftain Mark 10 and IFVs everywhere. Fifth layer would be the lower grade top tier things like the XYZ70, T64A, XM803 and similar designs, the U2K, Vickers Mark 7 perhaps. Sixth layer would be a less grade top tier manned battle tanks like the 1st Abrams IP, MX40, T64, BV, etc. Seventh would be the current top-end main battle tanks. Oof, that was a very long question. It was specifically in very much detail. I thank you for that comment. Jay Wilt is a commentator on my videos for quite some while, and yes, I remember certain names. So again, I try to answer here in a bit more detail. The thing is, balance is very difficult, and first we have to start with historical accuracy. Are the tanks in War Thunder modeled correctly 100%? If they have faults in their armor layout, armor thickness, armor effectiveness, their shell types, etc., they have to be addressed first. And this is again something that Gaijin has failed in certain aspects over the years constantly, and they have refused to address this or even refused to admit this. The next thing is that the BR Islands, 1.3 apart, I think it also would be a cold shower for certainly players that are grinding their way into higher battle ratings, because that requires, to be competitive, a full lineup, right? You need at best all the tanks at this battle rating island fully upgraded to be competitive. And then it also depends on the nation. And even if this 1.3 battle rating is set apart, that doesn't guarantee that there is a competitive lineup in the first place, that the battle ratings are actually accurate from the player's perspective, you know, from players that go through the numbers like me, from players with a lot of experience, from very good players that know how to use those tanks to perfection. Then we have the stop grind, the very harsh grind towards the new vehicles, the scuffed up economy, etc. I think what you were going for is a little bit of, you know, just trying to overcome the compression. And with your kind of what you suggested, that means a battle rating of at least 15 for the top tanks. And I think even with the BR Islands, there is enough stuff already at the high battle ratings that we can achieve some sort of balance, or at least a certainly significantly improved balance. I'm 100% convinced that this is possible. It's just a shame that Gaijin is not really interested in this, because compression is part of their business model, because you begin with, in my opinion, the very nice World War II experience, right? You get better at the game, you upgrade your tanks, you have this AP HE meta, right, where you get a shot into the side of an enemy tank, and if you hit the crew compartment, you get a kill. It's really satisfying when it happens, and when you die, you know, it's over at least quickly in most cases. And I agree that certain tanks with a certain amount of armor are very effective, but again, it's down to the map design and the game modes also interfering. Certain tanks are just not fit for the meta. Look at the British Chieftain. It's a beautiful tank. When I first played it, it was absolutely destroying the tanks that I previously hated so much. Those Russian IS-4, IS-3, T-54 series. Obviously back in the days it was completely overpowered and I really enjoyed it in arcade. But at the end of the day, soon it fell out of favor. There were tanks that were just simply faster with better armor and better mobility, and also quick firing guns with also then at the end of the day APFSDS. The amount of tanks that those tanks have to face that were never designed to face, that were never really capable of engaging, you know, it's just a mess. Going back again to the British, they have this meta of sitting behind the ridgeline with their very well armored turrets and not exposing the hull. But that's more or less a fantasy and a very campy playstyle. You don't cap. Capping is more valuable than killing 2-3 tanks, right? In terms of RP and civil lines. And I think that this is a big shame. And then there are always those aircraft. So even if you have a good battle, there is always this one guy rushing in a potato truck or a Hellcat, one of the caps, bailing out, jumping into an aircraft and just farming you, or just a helicopter just spawning right from the beginning. And if the enemy doesn't have a SAM, yeah, he can farm those tanks for days. Just look at the Ki-50 problem or the other helicopters that we had in the beginning. There are just so much more problems than only the BR. And I think that your idea of just separating that technology here a little bit is an absolutely awesome idea. And the specific examples make sense. There are two problems. It's not practical. Total BR islands are unheard of, and it's even more punishing for new players, because a new player can just can try out his new tank, right? And can see if it fits the meta. And a tank with good mobility at a lower battle rating is still, in my opinion, competitive for a good player, but a slow tank just simply stays a slow tank, and armor has just lost so much value. And the other question is, if we overtake the system There is always the possibility for good players to find a new sweet spot, and then suddenly, I don't know, with new game modes, new maps, etc., something like a T-32 is then unkillable because no nation has any sort of tank that could interfere with it. The next thing is the uproar from across the community, at least the paying community, would be outrageous. Think about a guy that bought himself the, I don't know, RE251 because he's sick and tired of the lack of mobility and he can't wait to unlock the M41, and he just purchases it because it has, objectively the better heat defense round, and suddenly the tank changes battle rating from 6.7 to 7.7 or even 8.7, where in terms of gun it belongs, right? Not quite 8.7, but you know what I'm talking about, right? And then he feels like betrayed because this was not his experience that he expected from watching videos or from first looking at the tank. So there are so many goddamn problems associated with it. And Jay Wild, let me tell you this, you're not the first one making good suggestions. You're not the first one being frustrated by the current experience in Tank RB, or for other people in RRB, Ship RB, Arcade, across War Thunder, But we haven't seen significant changes. The last time Gaijin has actually done something, listening to the community, was the Free Abrams incident. And there is actually not that much left of it, right? So you only have now to unlock one tier 1 upgrade to unlock then the fire extinguisher for tanks, for example, as a tier 2 upgrade. But you still have to upgrade it, and in particular versus ships, where no skill of the world can just prevent you from getting set on fire with the first shot across the map, that's really rough. Okay. So, first of all, I thank you all for your nice comments and you understanding my reasoning for tuning back the amount of Naval Forces footage that I present on my channel. Depending on the patch, depending on the situation, I will always look at Naval Forces, but, I have to be careful with it. And as usual, if you have questions, just make #question and I will find them. And as usual, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like with it, subscribe if you want to see more. And as usual, we will see each other on the waves, in the skies, and on the battlefields of War Thunder.